Some campuses teach more than books. Their walls still whisper after dark. Durham University wears its history in layers: cathedral stone above the river, lanes that tighten at night, and a castle that is still a college where new arrivals drag suitcases across floors worn by centuries of footsteps. In daylight, the place feels like a postcard that remembers your name, but after midnight, the edges sharpen. Most stories gather around University College and the castle. Residents talk about a staircase that cools the skin without a draft, as if the air itself has learned to hold its breath. In certain corridors, the electric lights flicker with a rhythm that is not electrical, and doors that shut cleanly in the afternoon refuse to catch at night. A porter once told of locking the Norman chapel and hearing plain chant rise from the nave a moment later, a thin braid of voices that stopped as soon as he spoke. Another student woke to the sound of keys moving across a desk, saw them circle in patient loops, and found the ring balanced on its edge at morning as if a hand had only just let go. Ask long enough, and someone will always mention the gray figure seen crossing the Fellows' Garden toward the old keep, a woman in simple dress who never looks up. She is fixed to a path that ignores paving and hedges, a route that makes sense only if you know the shape of older walls. In the cathedral precinct, the stories turn more intimate. Choristers walking through the cloister after rehearsal describe the click of shoes that match their pace a beat behind them. They stop, and the echo stops. They move, and the sound resumes, and there is no one else awake in that huge quiet. Durham has a rational explanation ready for every account. Old buildings creak, heating systems complain, river fog condenses in surprising ways, yet the pattern repeats across colleges. At Trevelyan, the hexagons and long sightlines make night feel like a geometry problem your eyes cannot solve. At St. Cuthbert's, boats thump the quay with a rhythm that becomes knocks at a bedroom wall when the moon lifts. Glass in sash windows ticks softly as it cools, and a new resident thinks someone is whispering in the next room until they hold their breath and realize the sound is inside the frame. What makes Durham unsettling is not one big story, but the way small reports stack into a shape you can feel. You step into a stairwell and remember every account at once. Your hand hovers over a banister polished by ghosts of the living, and you notice your own reflection in a window that should be black. For many, the fright arrives as courtesy. A blanket is pulled to a shoulder when the room is cold, or a chair is angled toward the fire when no one is there, an arrangement that is tidy rather than violent. The older porters treat these details like weather. They do not argue, they do not invite, they simply tell first years to return keys, to respect the close of the chapel, and to step lightly if they hear music in the passage because the night is doing its work. Stand at the castle gate when the city falls quiet, and you may feel that same work begin, as if the hill itself is remembering. If you woke to see a figure cross your carpet without a sound, and leave your door on the latch as if it were her own room, would you call campus security? Or would you lie very still and decide to pass your exams quickly and never sleep in that corner again? Tell us where you stand in the comments below. At the University of St. Andrews, the North Sea is a voice that speaks through stone. Wind works the winds and closes the day with a kind of salt bell, and the university grows out of that sound. Old college courts on streets where the light seems thinner even at noon. Walk past St. Salvator's chapel after dark and the town shrinks to footsteps. In the quad, students talk about a figure in a long veil that moves from shadow to shadow along the inside of the cloister. Not a drifting sheet, but a person who knows where she is going. Some say she is the echo of a woman buried in the cathedral ruins, a presence that keeps to the boundaries of her last map, never stepping onto the lawns, always touching stone as she passes. On the pier at night, the air can change without warning. A group will feel the cold lift and then a weight settle on their shoulders like an extra coat, and one by one they will turn, convinced someone is walking behind them in the red gowns the town still wears for processions. They find only the length of the harbor, a line of water that looks too black to be real. The medieval lanes collect their own accounts. A student late from the library cuts by the pen and hears beads clatter as if a rosary has been dropped near the gate. He bends to look and sees nothing, then stands and finds that the gate is slightly open. The oldest running story belongs to St. Rule's Tower. Climb it in daylight and you can see the whole town. The east sands, the golf links, the stubborn blue of the sea. Climb in imagination at midnight, and many will tell you a monk waits halfway up. He appears as a shape you only half accept, as if your eyes have been asked to remember a person they never met, and he holds a hand as if to bless or to restrain. Some leave an apple on the stair because someone told them fruit will keep him occupied. Others will not go near the place at all. There is laughter in the stories too. Rooms in the older halls sometimes hiss with gas when the heaters are off, and this becomes a tale about a chemistry student who never left his bench. A piano plays 2 notes in an empty teaching room, and the sound is so harmless that everyone smiles and locks the door anyway. St. Andrews manages this balance between affection and dread. The town is small enough that every path is familiar by the second week, yet stretched enough in time that any door might open onto a colder century. When the har slides in from the water and wraps the stone, even the most practical mind counts its steps between lamps. Suppose you saw the veil lift at the corner of your eye and watched it drop again without a body beneath. Would you continue home without comment? Or would you cross the quad in a hurry and keep your head down until you reached a lit stair? Drop your take in the comments and tell us whether you would test those steps at night. Aberystwyth sits between hill and sea, and the old college on the promenade holds the line like a ship that chose to become a building. Students know it first as an exterior, a Gothic silhouette that looks friendly in daylight and thoughtful after dark. Inside, the rooms stack at odd angles. Corridors bend where the architect changed his mind, and the scent of salt finds its way into the plaster. The university is young compared to Durham or St. Andrews, but the old college carries a complicated life. It began as a hotel and wore other roles before the lecture halls arrived, and that kind of layered use makes a certain kind of story inevitable. In the library, stacks after closing a cleaner once heard pages turn between 2 shelves where no book lay open. She waited for the sound to stop, and it did. Then it began again, steady and polite, as if someone invisible were testing the quality of paper. In a narrow corridor on an upper floor, a man in a dark coat has been seen to step into a doorway that should open onto the stair, yet opens instead onto a cupboard. He does not look at the witness. He folds himself into the space, and when the door is opened, there is only the smell of dust and old timber. Lecture rooms acquire their own reputations. A projector that behaves for every class will refuse one night to throw an image, then will oblige a minute after everyone has left. A row of chairs will angle 6 inches toward the window between 1 hour and the next, as if the room has been hosting a silent audience that wanted a view of the sea. What unsettles people about the old college is that the incidents are small and precise. You will not hear chains or see a candelabrum fall. You will feel a sleeve brush your arm when no one passes close, or you will notice chalk dust on a board no one used. The porters tell newcomers not to dramatize it. They say the building is older than your degree, and you are a guest in its systems. So you wait at the landing where the stair widens, and the shadow that has been preceding you down the corridor pauses as if to let you pass. Out on the seafront, the lamps are kind, and the waves make every story sound gentler than it felt. But if you are the last person to leave after a society meeting, and the wind rattles the sash so that it talks, the building will remind you that it was never only a campus. It was a hotel, a drawing room, a place where strangers put down bags and looked for their name in a register. That sense of hospitality survives, and so does a tendency to rearrange itself for the next arrival. Would you study there at midnight to finish an essay, or would you choose the brighter library on Penglai's Hill and leave the old college to keep its own company? Tell us your view in the comments. The University of Edinburgh stands on ground that remembers surgery and sermons and trials, and the city that wraps it has cellars under streets and vaults inside bridges. A university absorbs that temperament. Old College closes its quadrangle like a held breath, and the old medical school at Teviot keeps the smell of polish and something sharper that might be only memory. Students swap stories about footsteps in the anatomy corridor when the lights are off. A door that sticks in the afternoon swings wide at night. In a museum case, a set of instruments shines brighter than it should, and the glass fogs not from warmth, but from a cold that touches it from the inside. Some tie this atmosphere to the days when anatomy teaching pressed against the edge of the law and body snatchers walked the closes. No one needs to say the names aloud for the building to understand the reference. In Old College Library, a librarian making rounds has reported a figure who keeps pace on the balcony above, always between lamps, always the same distance away. In the morning, there are footprints on the dust of a closed gallery, prints that begin at a wall and end at a wall, as if the walker was born from stone and returned to it. On the other side of campus, McEwen Hall is grandeur taught to echo. During rehearsals, a single seat will lower and lift as if a latecomer cannot decide whether to commit to the performance. The Southbridge vaults are not a university space, but every student hears about them. Those chambers leak their stories upward into lecture rooms that sit above, and a class will sometimes find its attention pulled to the floor by a draft that smells like wet limestone. The true intensity gathers at night when the city is quiet. A researcher in a basement office hears a pen roll across a desk and finds it standing upright against gravity. Another locks a cupboard and returns from the printer to see the door ajar and a stack of papers arranged in a fan that looks like a demonstration. Edinburgh teaches skepticism with vigor, and the students who tell these tales are often the same ones who will demand evidence in a seminar. They describe their unease as data. Taken piece by piece, it is easy to explain. Take it together, and it becomes a texture, a habit of the place that every new cohort recognizes without being taught. Stand in Old College after rain, when stone smells like the inside of a cave, and listen to the quadrangle drip in patient rhythm. If you saw a figure cross beneath the colonnade and enter a door that no longer opens, would you follow to prove yourself right? Or would you turn away and call it architecture playing tricks? We would like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. There are other small reports that collect like condensation. A night porter in a nearby building says a black academic gown once lifted on its hook and turned as if a person had stepped into it, then settled flat when he spoke. In an office with a high sash window, a clock has been found with its hands pointing to impossible times, minutes sliding backward without noise. None of this proves anything, yet the pattern is hard to ignore. Edinburgh is a city that keeps its rooms, and the university is one of those rooms. Universities promise learning by daylight, but their stones keep a second syllabus. If you want more stories that make corridors feel longer than they are, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. And remember, tradition can be a haunting by another name.